welcome and thank you for being a part of WorkSafe's How to Influence Health and Safety Outcomes webinar. My name is Cameron Ling and I'll be your host for this session. Today, I'm joined by two of our 2023 WorkSafe Health and Safety Month ambassadors, Sean Aherne, a 2022 finalist, WorkSafe Health and Safety Representative of the Year Award and OHS Delegate at InfraBuild Steel, Australia's only fully vertically integrated steel manufacturer, part of a global group. Recognising the effects of being a shift worker within heavy industry, Sean's role as a HSR focuses on psychological health and safety. Welcome to you, Sean.
Thanks, Cameron. Thanks for having me.
Oh, no worries at all. It's great to have you with us. Also joining us is Gloria Morosinotto. She's a director at Contract Safety Solutions. Gloria has worked as an OHS professional for 24 years, predominantly in commercial construction, transport and manufacturing industries. She has been a lecturer and course coordinator in undergraduate and postgraduate OHS programs at RMIT University for over 11 years and has been working as a consultant for the WorkSafe OHS Essentials program for over 13 years. Good morning, Gloria.
Good morning, Cameron. Great to be here.
Oh, it's great to have you with us. And also joining us from WorkSafe Victoria is Anita Forde. Anita is the Manager, Industry and Representation Support. Her team within the field operations focuses on representation in all its forms and the importance of Victoria's HSRs. Good morning to you, Anita.
Morning, Cameron.
Thanks so much for all of you joining us today for a really important conversation. I'm really pleased to be a part of this webinar because I know that a key part of keeping workplaces safe is good consultation. And a key part of the safety puzzle is health and safety representatives, or HSRs as we call them. And OHS representatives, they are a vital conduit between employers and staff. Good consultation is about knowing how to influence and relies on establishing strong, mutually respectful relationships, which sounds easy, but we all know it takes some skill and know-how to do it well. This morning, we're going to explore the following key topics with our speakers: the power of genuine multi-party consultation that delivers jointly driven results, also how HSRs and OHS officers can increase their capacity to influence health and safety outcomes in their workplace, and also why employers should consider their HSRs and staff representatives as a real business asset and think of them as their safety eyes and ears. Then we're going to open it up to you, the audience, for questions. You'll see the Q&A box on your screen. You're welcome to start entering questions into that box at any stage throughout the presentation. If you've got one ready to go, pop it in there straight away so that when we get to the question and answer portion of this session, I'll have it ready to go on your behalf. But in the meantime, I'd like to start by introducing our first guest, as I mentioned, Sean Aherne. But rather than me tell you about him, I'm going to introduce Sean via this video, telling his story as a HSR finalist for the 2022 HSR of the Year Award.
Sean Aherne, InfraBuild.
I'm Sean Aherne. I'm a leading hand caster and health and safety representative at InfraBuild, Laverton. The range of health and safety risks on this site are bobcats, forklifts, we have overhead cranes, people working with molten steel at 1650 degrees. In the past, we've had 3 people take their lives that worked here, and one of those was on my crew at the time, and I saw the devastation that it caused his family. It's something that I don't want to see any other family go through. The thing that I'm most proud of as a HSR, the wellbeing office that I set up, and just the cultural shift around the stigmas in mental health. A culture of nobody talks about mental health to people having open discussions, people actually putting their hand up and saying, if you need help, I'm here to support you. We now have people across site that have become mental health first aiders. So to go from nothing to having volunteer mental health first aiders on site is a massive cultural change. This room is constantly being used. Our EAP says that he's never been busier. A third of our whole site at some stage have been through here for some reason or another.
You've really got guys where you sort of don't talk about stuff. You come in, you get on with it. Sean's just given a whole new lease on life as to how people talk about mental health in the workplace. I've reached out to Sean. If you know one of your mates is aware of your issue, and just having that little bit of extra support really come in handy, it definitely did for me. I don't have Sean on speed dial. Just kidding, I already have him on speed dial.
There was a safety issue where an explosion happened right on my face and I was scattered. Everyone sort of, or old school, they sort of let it go, but Sean came straight forward and helped me, sat me down, takes you out of that whole environment and looks after you.
Sean took ownership of this project. He printed information, documents, posters at his own personal time, and then went out to the site and pinned them on every notice board. Sean is a very humble bloke, doesn't really talk much about himself, but shows a lot of interest in everyone around him.
The guy is just an inspiration. This has been a blind area that we haven't taken as seriously. So passionate in order to be able to help others. The enthusiasm and the smile and the engagement that he's taken towards this.
Help's there, whether it's for that person, whether it's for their family, their friends, whatever. Breaking up the stigmas that have been there for years. It's not something easy to do, but it's working.
Sean, that's such an impressive outcome. I wonder, could you tell us about why consultation was so important in getting these fabulous results and how you went about it?
Thanks, Cameron. Well, it was about building a bridge between staff and management, because that's the key. If you can establish a voice for staff where they felt comfortable to speak to one of our 18 ambassadors, we had to establish a structure, set up toolbox meetings with our designated work groups. That way they could raise issues with their HSRs and they could be taken to the general safety meetings. Then we organised a calendar of events for October last year. They included skin checks, health checks, fresh fruit, a couple of different things throughout the month just to increase people's well-being, which leads into mental health. We just didn't want it to be another tick and flick. And it was something that we was always consulted with between the operators and management.
Oh, great work, Sean. It's quite a process, that, but obviously a very important one as well. I imagine there have been some really difficult times as a HSR. Can you tell us what some of the real hurdles with consultation have been and how you dealt with them practically?
Well, one of our issues here was the physical location of our EAP. It was situated right next to the HR office, and nobody wanted to walk past HR at the time to speak to the counsellor. So as the video showed, I organised a discreet room, which we turned into a wellbeing office. So that way anyone could just pop in for a confidential chat any time of the day, whether it was operational staff, whether it was management. There was a bit of a lack of trust in the confidentiality aspect. People wanted to be able to go and speak to the counsellor, but doing it without everybody else knowing.
I'd love to turn to you now, Gloria, if I could, and change tack a little bit to think about consultation from a business perspective. You're in the extraordinary position as a consultant who has worked in many varied small to medium enterprise workplaces, some with dedicated HSRs and some without, seeing some really effective consultation. What are some of the core elements that employers and OHS professionals should consider when engaging with their HSRs and their teams more broadly?
Yeah, that's a great question, Cameron. One of the core elements that employers and OHS professionals should consider when they're engaging with HSRs is that safety is all about developing and encouraging a positive safety culture throughout all levels of the business. And this requires open and effective communication with all employees. HSRs provide an important and influential communication link between the employer and employees, and should be considered not only as employee representatives for all matters health and safety, but also, and just as importantly, as the eyes and ears for the employer and OHS professionals. If they're utilised effectively, the HSR can assist in making dramatic improvements to health and safety and are an absolute asset to the business. I learned early on in my career that HSRs can be an extremely positive influence to the safety culture in a workplace. When I asked a HSR to help me develop procedures and connect me to the right people in the workplace so I could ask them questions, I didn't realise it at the time, but what I was doing was creating an inclusive and positive OHS culture just by asking the HSR to help me and get people involved with what I was doing. I think I was developing a procedure on concrete pumping, and I essentially said, look, I've got no idea about this. Connect me to the most influential, the most respected concrete pump operator, and let's develop this procedure. And the end result was that the HSR and employees felt valued and respected. They then adhered to the procedures that were developed because they were a part of the development process. I, in turn, had connection with the HSR and employees, and they felt comfortable talking to me and being involved in health and safety. As an OHS consultant, I need to ensure that I talk to people across all levels of the business, and quite often, the best person to start with is the HSR. Effective management of health and safety requires effective safety communication, and engaging with HSRs is fundamental to successful OHS communication. If you have a HSR in your workplace, you need to be consulting with them and using them as a resource, because that's what they are. That is why their position was developed and introduced and included in legislation. They provide that critical link between employers, OHS professionals and employees to ensure that we can communicate all things health and safety to everyone in the workplace.
So, Gloria, that sounds great, but we all know there are times when consultations are more difficult. What advice can you give to both businesses and HSRs or employees in working through difficult areas for the best mutual outcome?
Yeah, we all have these challenging situations and they can be tricky to navigate, but respect is the key here. Having respect for an alternative view is extremely important. Both parties need to be respectful at all times. It's important for everyone to understand each other's needs and perspectives. We all need to listen to each other, share knowledge, and try to work collectively to achieve a successful outcome. It's also important to understand that consultation may not be agreement or consensus, but simply hearing and considering each other's views. We all need to understand the implications for each party and the consequences, and work on building relationships. Having the right mindset is fundamental, and that mindset should be that we consult with HSRs, because consultation is good for business and results in the business benefiting through improved staff morale, lower premiums, less time off work for injured workers, and improved productivity.
That's great. I'd love to just stay with you for a second, Gloria. Your clients are organisations who mightn't have the luxury of a HSR. So how can both parties do this in a simple, inexpensive and perhaps pragmatic way?
Yeah. Many of the clients that I deal with, especially through the WorkSafe OHS Essentials program, do not have a HSR and do not have big budgets to deal with health and safety. And there are many things that you can do to create positive OHS outcomes and make a real difference. One of the most important and one of the most effective is to just talk about health and safety. Meet regularly with your employees and talk about health and safety often and with everyone. Listen to what everyone has to say and take all of the OHS issues that are raised seriously. Provide an environment where it's safe to speak up about health and safety. Take a walk around your workplace. Stop, take 20 minutes, grab an employee, and walk around, have a look, see what you can identify in terms of health and safety hazards, discuss issues with them, get everyone involved. Essentially, it's about talking about health and safety as often as possible and with everyone.
Anita, I'd love to bring you in on this one now. I really want to know why WorkSafe considers consultation and HSRs as so important. What can you tell us here?
Yeah, definitely, Cameron. I think it's really important that everyone out there knows that WorkSafe value the role of HSRs, because we know that when employees and employers work together, they create a healthier and safer workplace. That HSR is a crucial link between employers and employees. Employee representation provides means for involving people who do the work in the health and safety matters caused and raised by the work. So one of the 5 pillars of the OHS Act is that employees are entitled and encouraged to be represented in relation to all things health and safety. Now, that's through consultation. And not only is it part of our legislation, it's there because we know and research shows us that when employees have input before a decision is made about the health and safety matters, workplaces have better health and safety outcomes. If you listen to Sean's story above, it's very much about listening to what people are saying and what they're hearing. If you think about when that wellbeing place was set up, if they had listened about the concerns of walking past the HR room, those type of things would have been addressed at the start. So it's really important that that listen piece is happening. But WorkSafe also believe that the roles of health and safety reps should be encouraged, supported and protected. So we're talking about those smaller workplaces, getting that employee in there, encouraging someone to put their hand up, supporting them when they do, and protecting their rights under the Occupational Health and Safety Act.
Thanks for that, Anita. I'm going to stay with you. I guess part of valuing HSRs is knowing what a difference they can make in consulting employees. And we can't underestimate that role at all. We've heard from Gloria about some of the key elements required for good consultation. So can you build on that and provide some advice to business about what they need to think about to consult internally about health and safety?
I'd love to. It's really my passion about this stuff. What I talk about when I speak to any employer or any HSR, it's about making sure that these people work together, making sure that to understand consultation, you need to understand each other as humans. You need to understand each other as what drives them, what motivates them. And by knowing that, it's really important and you get a sense of where someone is at. So for all the employers listening today, I think some of the key things that HSRs that I speak to need from you and your business to do their role right is the right attitude. I mean, it's as simple as that. And it's very much as Gloria said, think of your HSRs as the eyes and ears because they have experience and knowledge. They know what's happening on the work floor. And while you might have done the role 5 or 10 years ago before you did get promoted or before you were brought into the business, these people are doing it now. They are doing it now and they're understanding and feeling the health and safety issues. So they can make a significant contribution to identifying, controlling, assessing risks, but also developing the preventative measures to address and any other safety issue that might arise within the workplace. Really important also is to not treat them as an OHS officer or shift your responsibility onto them. HSRs do not have a responsibility for health and safety in the workplace. That is the employer, that's their role, that's OHS advisor's role. So it's really important that there's a say, but it's not the responsibility. And very much staying with the culture, it's about seeing them as an asset. It's seeing them as the benefit to your business. Like they're putting their hand up to say, yes, I want to help your business succeed. That's an asset to your business because they're brought in, they care, and they're willing to do this. They're willing to represent their staff and they're willing to listen and to be that conduit. So you cannot have anyone better in your business than a HSR.
Well, on that point, I'd love to bring you back in, Sean. You're a very proactive HSR in your business and have won some impressive awards for your work. Again, a huge congratulations for that. If you think about HSRs as a business asset, like Anita's talking about, then you want them to do their role well. In order to do that, what are some of the key things HSRs like yourself, what do they need?
I think for good consultation, having the right information is critical. So that way everyone can discuss the matter in full. If they have all the info and the right information at the right time, without key pieces of information, they're not going to get the result that anyone desires. So with HSRs, they're like members of the OHS team or having a meeting with WorkSafe. If the inspectors are there and they know what they're there to talk to them about or what the issues are, they can assist a lot easier with having the issues fixed, speaking to the inspectors, hearing both sides of the story. Because without that, what happens? I think
Exactly
key element
right, Sean.
is providing...
Very well said. Sorry, continue, please.
Oh, sorry. A key element is providing adequate time to the HSRs. While they undertake their role, the Act states that a reasonable time should be given for them to access the information, to digest the information, to share the information with their designated work groups, and having the right time is a critical part of that. So that way it's not rushed and rushed decisions aren't made.
Thanks for that, Sean. Really appreciate that. Sorry again for interrupting. Anita, if I could jump back to you for a second. How important are strong, mutually respectful relationships?
It's unbelievably important, as Gloria was talking about. It's about knowing your people. It's about, for a business consultation, being the front of your mind. It is not always the front of your mind when you're thinking about implementing new plant or new items into the workplace, or even a new procedure or process that will affect people's OHS. I think it's really important to change your thinking and to make it front of mind and say, how is this going to affect my workers? Because for you, it might mean that you save 5 or 10 seconds on a process, but for them, it might mean 20 minutes setting it up in the morning, which will then negate down the track. But also it can introduce new risks. So it's really important that having that consultation is part of the business. It's part of everything that you do, but also part of it is taking the time to get to know who your HSRs are, making time to build that rapport and that relationship. So you are talking the same language, you know what each other are thinking. Those are the type of things that we talk about as being like the most important for business and consultation.
Anita, you made a really good point about the importance of valuing HSRs, and I think that is the key. So I'd like to ask Sean, if I could, with his field experience, what is the key value of a HSR, a staff OHS representative, or a team with a voice? Sean, as that HSR, what has your employer done to make you feel valued and that your role is important?
Well, I've been lucky enough that my employer, if they've given me an actual seat at the table, I'm regularly consulted across the business on my views, any plans that we have in the future. With the mental health program, just as an example, that was 100% supported by management. We've got thousands of staff across Australia, and my employer made it clear that they respect my representation as someone from the floor and as a different voice. They've listened to me. Management values and promotes the return of investment back through the business. And yeah, I'm happy to say that that continues, and they've just put me into a secondment role across the company to actually have that voice.
Oh, that's fantastic, Sean. Congratulations, and very well deserved. Anita, what do you hear from HSRs and staff representatives about what makes them feel valued? What does WorkSafe recommend as good practice?
Thanks, Cameron. Part of my role is to support our health and safety representative support officers. It's a huge mouthful of a title, but they are dealing with HSRs every day. So they are talking on the ground. They are in some of your businesses potentially having conversations with HSRs. And there's a few things that really stand out for us that we hear every time that we go into large business, medium and small. There is no difference between these three, which is quite an interesting fact for us to find. But it's really important as a starting point that everyone from your CEO through to your leaders, through to your supervisors, through to everyone understands the role of HSRs. So do you have the right attitude? Do you actually know what a HSR does, what their role is and what your obligations are for it? I've said it multiple times, the attitude is really important, making sure that you don't perceive them as a nuisance, making sure that you actually understand that sometimes the alternative voice is the voice that you need to hear and there's a reason for it, but also to really value and promote the role. We know that legislation says there needs to be a poster on the wall. We have some great ones on our website, which I can do a spruik for, but I think it's really important that it's more than just a poster on the wall, that it's actually knowing who the people are. It's knowing what they represent, what areas they represent, so the designated work groups, or as we call them, DWGs, but also to value and promote the role, making sure that you publicly promote the success stories that you achieve together, making sure that people know that it's because of the HSR that these safety outcomes have happened, but also address genuine safety issues with the HSRs. And if you're in a workplace where you're finding people aren't putting their hand up to become a HSR, that's a reflection for yourselves to have as business owners and as managers and supervisors, because sometimes it is that they don't have an awareness of the role themselves. So that awareness piece is really important, but it's also the right attitude. So making sure that that's there.
And Anita, continuing on, if consultation is not happening in a workplace, can WorkSafe come in to help?
Definitely. So as the poll results showed us, what we actually care about is that communication. That piece is so important. So we suggest for everyone, and our HSR support officers will say, have you spoken to your employers or your boss about letting them know the requirements to consult? Because sometimes, as I've said, and that's one of our key points, is knowing the role and the obligations, but also it's really helpful to share some of our guidance about, hey, it's in writing here. These are the things you need to do in plain English, as opposed to reading through legislation, which can be quite tough, but also making sure that if things aren't working, WorkSafe is here. You are welcome to call our advisory service. We can give you advice, but we can also make sure that an inspector comes out, because it is a requirement under the Occupational Health and Safety Act to consult.
Great, thanks for that, Anita. Really appreciate that great summary. I understand too you'll be releasing a survey to better understand HSRs very soon. We'll include a QR code at the end of this session, and we do encourage HSRs to get on and participate. I'd like to open up to some questions now. We've got a heap coming through, so I'm going to get to as many as I possibly can. It's great that we've got so many people joining us today and so many people engaging with these questions. So I will attempt to get to as many as possible. Feel free, any of you, to add anything, and I'm going to direct them as best I can, but maybe jump in if you've got something to say. This one, a lot of people wanting to know the answer to. What advice would you give to HSRs when ideas, suggestions, opportunities for improvement, etc., regularly get knocked back, mainly due to costs/budget? Who wants to take that one?
I'm happy to jump in, but I'd love to hear from Sean afterwards, if that's all right. Sorry to put you on the spot, Sean. But having been in the role, I think it's amazing to hear from you. But for me, it is keep going, having a health and safety committee, being able to have that conversation, to not be disheartened. And if it is a budget or a monetary thing, you've got to start thinking about what is reasonably practicable in the workplace and what is the risk that we're trying to address and how it is that that risk can be mitigated. So maybe your control measure might not be the best supported one within the business, but there could be something else. So having that conversation, and it works both ways. So I would love to hear that. But also, Sean, from your experience on the ground, I'm sure you've gone through this before.
Yeah, I think consultation is the key, because you need to talk to the other HSRs, you need to talk to management, you need to find that meeting point in the centre. Talk to unions, talk to WorkSafe, do a bit of research and look at other alternatives, because the way that the management see it and the way that HSRs see it could be so far apart, but somebody in another workplace might have something that in the middle that suits both sides. So consultation is the key to it.
Great, thank you for that, Sean. I might direct this one to you initially, Gloria, but please, if I'm directed in the wrong direction, anyone jump in. How do you improve the safety culture where team members feel that management are selective with the safety concerns that they address?
I think the key to that particular situation is education. So everyone has a different perspective on safety, and they're looking at it from, their particular view. So for management, it might be, do we have the budget? Do we have the time? And for the HSR, obviously, it's about ensuring the safety of their employees. The secret is to share your knowledge with all parties. So if you really want to make a difference, we all know what we know and we focus on what we know. We need to share that knowledge with everyone in that particular team, that particular workplace, so that everyone can understand each other's perspectives and see the benefits of making those improvements, as well as empathising with each other's perspectives. So educating each other, sharing knowledge and communicating is absolutely fundamental if you want to make any change whatsoever.
Thanks for that, Gloria. Sean, I might direct this next one towards you. What evidence does a workplace need to demonstrate effective consultation has occurred?
They need to show that they've taken it to meetings, that they've released the information, and as I said earlier, that the information that they give to the HSRs, that it is all the information, and that they give them enough time to digest it, to take it to the designated work groups, to get feedback and to reschedule to have another chat about it.
Great, thank you, Sean. This next question, and I don't fully understand exactly what it's trying to ask, but I'm happy for any of you to take this one, but a lot of people wanting it. How do you engage workers in consultation and even elect HSRs where culturally they are rather subservient or culturally do not consider safety essential? Gloria, Anita, sorry, is that one for WorkSafe?
I think it's really important. So we've got guidance about communicating across different languages. We've also got lots of publications about communicating about consultation and communicating about what the role of employee representation is. So it might be that people are unsure of what the role is and unsure of, if they put their hand up to be a HSR, will they have to do more work? Will they have to take on an extra piece? So there's lots of different options that could answer that question, but very much to the heart of it is making sure that people are educated, that they understand what it is, but also if your workplace feel that they have a say already and that they don't need the formalised structures, there's nothing in our legislation that actually says they must have it. But I do promote and think that it's really good to have it there for that one time when, in case you need it, to at least have that as a backup.
Great, thank you for that, Anita. Gloria, I might direct this one to you. How do you effectively include contractors, and remote workers in effective consultation?
Well, the secret to that is, again, education. We all need to understand that contractors, subcontractors, they're all employees. And if we're all aware of that, we need to treat them exactly as we would direct employees. So that's about the state of knowledge, firstly. But also, we've got to have good systems and processes in place to ensure that we capture them. Quite often, I have visited workplaces where I have clients who have robust systems in place for their employees, and perhaps they have an induction program and a handbook of some sort and procedures. And when I ask them about contractors, they sort of look at me and say, oh, I didn't even think about that. And then it's a matter of me explaining to them, well, look, you need to treat them exactly as you would a direct employee. So we need to develop perhaps a contractor management system that ensures that when we engage contractors, that when we bring them into our business, we have processes in place to ensure that we communicate and consult with them and include them in the management of health and safety, just as we would with direct employees.
Great, thanks, Gloria. This next one, a direct question to you, Sean. Sean, as an experienced HSR, what advice would you give an OHS trainee 2 weeks in?
Very good question. Use the experience of other HSRs. Talk to them. Ask them for advice, take a breath, because a lot of it can be overwhelming. As Gloria and Anita have said, education, actually get to know the different roles, the different things, look at past issues, speak to your work groups, and consultation with the other HSRs. That is the key. It's the more information that you can gather, the easier it's going to be. And if you can't find it, ask for help, ask for support, whether it's WorkSafe, your designated work group, other HSRs, or the unions. There's plenty of information out there.
Great, thanks for that, Sean. Hopefully that bit of advice helps. Another question that a lot of people are wanting to know, and I'll open this up to all three of you. How does a workplace get a HSR structure at a workplace without any active union members?
So your HSR structures are not connected to your union memberships, so it's a completely different form of representation. So it's all to do with OHS. So all you need to do is you need to speak to your management about wanting to create a designated work group, and they have 14 days to start acting on that and negotiating. So that's part of our legislation as well. So that's a really good place to start, is to start talking and saying, hey, I want one. We have at WorkSafe the HSR support officers. Drop us a line. More than happy to support with that first conversation, but also how we move from there. From a business perspective, I might throw to you, Gloria, if that's all right.
Yeah, I would like to add that, like anything that you do in health and safety and in business, you've got to have good systems and processes that are going to document and plan how you're going to manage that particular issue or that matter. And communication, consultation and representation are no different at all. If you want to formalise and be organised and plan how you're going to have and manage communication, consultation and representation, document a procedure in that regard. Refer to legislation, refer to the WorkSafe website and see what guidance is available there, and document how you're going to do that.
Gloria, can I get you to continue on? Because a direct question here for you. Anita, can you... Oh, sorry, this one's for Anita. My apologies. Anita, I'll go straight to you. Can you expand on the difference between OHS officer and HSR?
Definitely. So last year in our webinar, you might have seen, if not still on our YouTube channel, so you're welcome to go to it, we had a graph between the difference between a HSR, an OHS officer, an OHS duty holder, so it's like an employer or a director of a company, and also a potential REO or a representative from a union or other employee organised area. So there's different roles between it. A HSR is a voluntary role. So it's all about putting your hand up and saying, I want to look after the health and safety. It's about wanting to make sure that there is a safe workplace. You've got powers once you've been duly elected within the workplace, and the employer has obligations towards you, and you're also entitled to a 5-day training course as well as a refresher. So that's very different to a paid role of an OHS advisor, where you have responsibilities, you have duties, you have probably KPIs in a formalised system. So it's a very separate and different role.
Great. Thank you for that, Anita. I might ask this last final one only because I'm conscious of time and a lot of people wanting it too or needing this one asked. Working in community services can be quite hectic, especially with staff shortages. I struggle to make time to give what I have to offer as a HSR. Any advice?
I'll jump in there. I do a lot of work in community service areas, and time is an issue always, and resources. What we need to do in those situations is communicate to everyone as much as we can, as often as we can. So even if you're getting a 30-second conversation with someone in the hallway or over a cup of coffee with management or with other employees, you're still making progress. So in those situations where time is limited and you are restricted in terms of resources, be that time and budgets and other personnel, it's about chipping away. So it's about little bits over time that will make a big difference. So the secret to that is stick with it, talk to everyone as much as possible. Eventually, things will change in terms of culture and resource allocation. And it's those little conversations that you have chipping away over time that will make a big difference.
Thanks for that, Gloria. And thank you for all those questions that have come in. As I said, I'm very conscious of time and needing to wrap things up. There's a whole lot more questions there. What I would say to anyone who's asked those questions or seeing them and wanting answers to them, please get in contact with the WorkSafe advisory line to get answers to those. That's what that's there for. Utilise it and hopefully get some of those answers. I apologise that I couldn't get to more of your questions. We do have to wrap things up, but I want to say a huge thank you to all of our panel this morning, Sean Aherne, Gloria Morosinotto and Anita Forde. Thank you to the three of you for all of your wonderful work this morning.
Thanks, Cameron.
Thank you, Cameron.
And thank you to everyone who joined us for this session. We hope that you found it an interesting and informative session. And we're going to note on the screen shortly a list of any of the contacts that have been mentioned and that you may find helpful. If you have any requests for further information, we do recommend you to please get in touch. Remember, if there is something you want to discuss urgently, when you are back at work or any of those answers to the questions, please use the WorkSafe advisory line, or also there is the emergency line to use. So we plead that you use those resources if you need them. Thank you so much for being a part of this webinar. Have a great day.